Hello everyone, it's Artless Paper here, and it's time to start the third episode of Virgo Virtuo's diary. We're on our third Dungeons & Dragons session, and things are getting quite interesting. I'm personally loving how the different dynamics are forming and how all the different characters are gaining opinions of each other. Some not so good, and others a little more favourable. For example, we got a good insight into Bastian this session. So, without further ado, it's time to start the diary. Session 3, Loaded Skepticism. The bustle of the market soon caught up to me as we paced through. I really hate being surrounded by crowds. They're loud, tightly packed, and full of unknown variables. The things I do for research. Our travel was further delayed by Zell picking up some elven-inscribed armour from a shady-looking vendor. But really, I can't blame her. The streets seemed to have an uneasy edge to them on that particular day, and some extra protection wasn't the worst idea. That thought was confirmed when an overconfident man suddenly swung their arms around Zell and Kara, instructing them to pretend we know each other. The gesture seemed to make Zell incredibly uneasy, and the man explaining his name was Cassius and that he was a friend of Hugo's did nothing to ease that. However, seeing the crowd start to look at Kara suspiciously gave us all the cues we needed to know something was wrong. Moving with more urgency, we headed towards Bastian's church. It was a good idea in theory. We had connections there, it was safe, and luckily not too far away. However, as we changed pace, it was clear we were being followed. As I felt my feathers start to prick up, I admit I felt rather vulnerable. As a result, I took a calculated risk and decided to take one of my mutagen toxins. Popping the cork off the vial, I let the thick black liquid fall down my throat, bringing a familiar burn with it. It was a toxic substance, one that I had built up a resistance for over the years. Its purpose was to change my physiology in some way to aid me in areas I find lacking. This particular vial would increase my dexterity in case I would need to defend myself. It has side effects, of course. Hair turning white, tongue blackening over time, and my skin gaining translucency. But these changes don't bother me. No, this is progress, and I'm willing to make these sacrifices for perfection. Feeling a little more prepared, we headed into the Church of Yala. For a church celebrating life, I admit it felt a little dull, but it was clear that its patrons cared for the place. I took a seat on one of the many pews, placed my syringe gun across my lap, and kept a keen eye out in case I would need to intervene. Luckily, I didn't have to waste any ammunition, as Bastian and Hugo smooth-talked the watchers into thinking Kara had been escorted away by another priest. It was a good job too, because they were causing quite a fuss from outside when they came knocking. Once it was clear that they had left, we all took a seat together. Bastian made tea while we discussed our next move. We just needed to find Kara's friend Sid, and then the two would be off on their merry way. So while we talked about the safest route to get her out of here, we sent Cassius off to find Sid to save us some time. There was no point wasting resources on this girl. Most of the party seemed eager to continue to help Kara, especially as, according to Hugo, there was a good amount of money on this job. However, I will admit two things. Firstly, I don't care for money, so Hugo waving a paycheck in my face was going to do nothing to convince me to tag along. And secondly, I don't do anything that doesn't benefit my research. I think making a deal asking for time with Cal in exchange for time I spent helping would only be fair. I'll write up a contract and I'll be sure to update you.